I was standing in the floodlight circle at the old homestead foundation, with my back to the stone line and something wearing Joel's face, standing 10 feet away in the dark, asking me, in Joel's voice, why I wouldn't help him cross. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Ryan Kilmer, and I work third shift perimeter security at Skinwalker Ranch for exactly 14 nights in April of 2021. The job posting said overnight site monitoring for a private research firm leasing the property, $800 a week, cash basis, solo patrol. They needed someone to start immediately. The previous guard had quit without notice. I should have asked why. I drove out from Price on a Sunday afternoon, took Highway 6 east, then cut north through Duchesne. The landscape changed as I got closer. Flat scrubland replaced the mountain valleys, cottonwood breaks appeared along dry washes, red rock ridges pushed up in the distance like broken teeth. The ranch sits in the Uinta Basin, northeast Utah, about 20 minutes south of Fort Duchesne. Middle of nowhere doesn't quite cover it. This was the kind of place where your cell signal dies and stays dead. The property itself was about 500 acres, most of it fenced with barbed wire and T-posts that had been there long enough to rust orange. There was a main gate on the access road, a few equipment sheds that looked like they'd been dropped there by a contractor and forgotten, 2 monitoring trailers with satellite dishes bolted to the roofs, and the ruins of an old homestead near the northwest corner. Just a stone foundation and part of a chimney. I met my supervisor at the south trailer around 4 in the afternoon. His name was Glenn Richter. Mid-50s, thinning hair going gray, Carhartt jacket with oil stains on the cuffs. He didn't shake my hand when I got out of my truck. You're the new night guy, he said. Not a question. That's right, I said. You know what this place is. I know the name. I've heard the stories. Glenn nodded slowly, eyes scanning the horizon like he was checking for something. Then you know we get trespassers. Lots of them. Paranormal tourists, UFO people, kids with cameras who think they're going to see something. He turned back to me. Your job is to drive the perimeter, check the gates, log anything unusual, and call me if someone tries to get in. You do not engage. You do not leave the property. You stay in the vehicle unless you're checking a lock. Understood? I mean it, Glenn said. You stay in the truck. All right. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a key ring. Main gate, shed locks, trailer access. The metal was warm from his body heat. Then he pulled out something else, a laminated index card. He held it for a moment, just looking at it. Then he set it on the trailer steps between us. This was left by the last guy, Glenn said quietly. I don't know if it's serious or if he was screwing around, but 2 guards before him left the same list. He paused. So I'm passing it to you. I picked it up. Standard 3x5 card, laminated with clear packing tape, edges starting to peel. 5 rules written in blue pen. The handwriting was neat, blocky, deliberate, like someone had taken their time. Read it now, Glenn said. Then keep it with you. I read it. Night Patrol, Skinwalker Ranch. 1. Never respond to your name after midnight. If you hear it called, stay silent and move away from the voice. 2. Do not approach the northwest gate between midnight and 4 a.m., even if you see lights or movement there. 3. If you see someone standing completely still near the cattle guard, count to 30 before looking again. Do not approach. 4. Do not enter the old homestead foundation after dark, even with lights. 5. If your radio plays a voice you recognize, do not reply. Turn off the radio and wait 5 minutes before turning it back on. I looked up at Glenn. The sun was starting to drop behind the ridge, throwing long shadows across the scrub. Is this a joke? I don't know, he said. But the last guy left in the middle of his shift and didn't come back for his paycheck. Guy before him lasted 3 weeks and said he wouldn't talk about it. Glenn pulled his truck keys from his pocket. You want the job or not? I needed the money. I'd been out of work since January when the drilling company I'd been with went under. Savings were gone. Rent was due. I want it, I said. Then take the rules seriously or don't, but don't call me unless it's an emergency. He nodded toward a white Ford F-250 parked beside the trailer. That's yours. Keys are in it. Shift starts at 8 p.m., ends at 6 a.m. You'll have the place to yourself. He started walking toward his own truck, then stopped. We don't run night operations anymore. Why not? Glenn looked at me for a long moment. Wind picked up, rattling the chain link fence near the shed. Just follow the rules, he said. Then he got in his truck and left. I stood there watching his taillights disappear down the access road, dust cloud trailing behind him in the dying light. The ranch was quiet. No birds, no insects, just wind moving through the sage. I spent the next 3 hours checking the vehicle and driving the perimeter in what was left of the daylight. The F-250 was a 2018 model, extended cab, white paint faded to primer in places. Inside, cracked vinyl seats, AM/FM radio, a Motorola handheld clipped to the dash, and a spiral notebook wedged between the seats. Previous logs, I assumed. I flipped through it. Most entries were mundane. Gate checks, normal. No activity. Perimeter clear. But about 15 pages in, I found an entry from March 23rd that just said, heard it again. Didn't answer. Kept driving. Nothing after that for 4 days. Then, NW gate at 0314. Saw lights, did not approach. Followed rule 2. The handwriting got messier after that. The final entry was dated April 2nd. I'm done. Sorry, Glenn. Can't do this anymore. That was 9 days ago. I closed the notebook and started the truck. The ranch perimeter was a rough 2-track road that followed the fence line through scrub and over shallow washes. It took about 40 minutes to complete a full circuit if you drove slow and checked the gates. There were 3 gates total. The main gate on the south access road where I'd come in, the northwest gate in a drainage wash, and a maintenance gate on the east side near the trailers. I drove it twice before sunset, memorizing the landmarks. The northwest gate was chain link, double width for equipment access, secured with a heavy chain and master lock. It sat at the bottom of a wash where spring runoff would cut through the property. Nothing unusual about it, except for the complete absence of tire tracks leading to it. Nobody had used that gate in months, maybe longer. The old homestead was about 100 yards east of the northwest gate, just a rectangular foundation of stacked stones, maybe 20 by 30 feet laid out in the scrub like a grave marker. Most of the stones were still in place, 2 or 3 high. The chimney was partially collapsed, red brick spilling into the center of the foundation, and in the middle of it all, someone had installed a solar floodlight on a metal pole, the kind you see at construction sites. Heavy duty, bright. It was already on when I got there, even though the sun hadn't fully set. I stopped the truck about 30 feet from the foundation and just looked at it. The light created a perfect circle, maybe 40 feet across. Everything inside it bright as day. Everything outside darkness. I checked the laminated card. Rule 4. Do not enter the old homestead foundation after dark, even with lights. I put the truck in gear and kept moving. By the time I got back to the south trailer, it was 8 p.m. and full dark. The stars were out, hard and bright in the desert sky. No moon. The kind of darkness that feels heavy. I made my first official loop at 8:15. The radio was preset to channel 6. Glenn said he'd be monitoring, but he didn't expect to hear from me unless there was a breach or a medical emergency. I checked the main gate. Locked. I checked the east maintenance gate. Locked. I drove past the northwest gate without stopping, just slowed down enough to see the chain was intact. I didn't look at the homestead. First hour, nothing. Second hour, nothing. By 10 p.m., I was starting to think the card was just hazing, something the previous guards had cooked up to mess with the new guy. I'd worked overnight security before. Hospital parking garage in Salt Lake, warehouse district in Provo. You get bored, you get creative. Maybe this was just their version of a snipe hunt. But then I remembered the last entry in the notebook. I'm done. Sorry, Glenn. Can't do this anymore. That didn't sound like a joke. At 11:30, I was parked near the south trailer, drinking gas station coffee that had gone lukewarm when I heard something on the radio. Static first, then a voice out here. I picked up the radio. Say again. More static, then nothing. I waited. The radio stayed quiet. Probably just crosstalk from another channel. It happened sometimes, especially out here where there was nothing to interfere with the signal. I set the radio back on the dash and finished my coffee. At midnight, I heard my name, Ryan. It came from outside the truck, maybe 20 feet to my left, near the corner of the trailer. A man's voice, calm, conversational. My voice. I froze, coffee cup halfway to my mouth. Ryan, you out here? The voice was exactly like mine. Same pitch, same cadence, same slight rasp I get when I haven't had enough water. But I was inside the truck, doors locked, windows up. I didn't answer. Ryan? I set the coffee down slowly and looked toward the sound. Nothing. Just the dark edge of the trailer and scrub beyond it. No movement, no shape. The voice came again, closer this time. Ryan, you okay? I put the truck in gear and drove. I didn't turn my head. I didn't roll down the window. I didn't touch the radio. I just drove north along the perimeter, headlights cutting through the dark, hands tight on the wheel. I didn't stop until I was half a mile away, near the east maintenance gate. My hands were shaking. I sat there for 10 minutes, engine idling, listening to the hum of the heater and my own breathing. The radio was quiet. The landscape was empty. Nothing moved in the headlights. I pulled out the laminated card and read Rule 1 again. Never respond to your name after midnight. If you hear it called, stay silent and move away from the voice. I hadn't responded. The voice had stopped. I made another loop, slower this time, checking every shadow. Nothing. At 1 a.m., I passed the northwest gate again. Chain still locked. Wash still empty. I kept my eyes forward and kept driving. At 2 a.m., I heard it again. Ryan. This time it came from the radio. My own voice crackling through the speaker. Ryan, you there? I grabbed the radio and turned it off. My heart was hammering. I counted to 60 in my head, watching the dark road ahead. Then I turned the radio back on. Silence. I keyed the mic. This is Perimeter Patrol. Radio check. Glenn's voice came through, groggy. Copy, Patrol. You okay? Yeah, I said. Just checking the connection. It's 2 in the morning. I know. Sorry. Anything wrong? And I looked at the radio, looked at the card. No. Everything's clear. Alright. Try to let me sleep. Copy. I set the radio down and didn't touch it again for the rest of the shift. At 4:30 a.m., I parked near the south trailer and waited for dawn. The sun came up a little after 6, turning the sky from black to deep blue to orange. Glenn arrived at 6:15 in his white Dodge, carrying a thermos and looking like he hadn't slept. Anything? He asked. Quiet night, I said. He looked at me. Really looked at me. You look tired. I'm fine. You coming back tonight? I thought about the voice, my voice, calling my name from the dark. Yeah, I said. Glenn nodded and handed me an envelope. $800 cash, mostly 20s. See you tomorrow. I drove back to the motel in Roosevelt, crashed until 2 p.m., and returned that evening. The second night was almost the same. I heard my name once, around 1 a.m., from somewhere near the cattle guard on the northwest side. I didn't answer. I drove away. The voice didn't follow. But this time, I noticed something. The cattle guard was a standard channel design, set into the dirt road about 50 yards from the northwest gate, metal grating over a concrete channel meant to keep livestock from crossing. I'd driven over it a dozen times already, but when I heard my name that second night, I was stopped about 30 yards short of it, and there was someone standing on the other side. I saw it in my headlights, a figure, maybe average height, standing completely still in the scrub, about 20 feet past the cattle guard, hands at its sides, facing me. I remembered Rule 3. If you see someone standing completely still near the cattle guard, count to 30 before looking again. Do not approach. I started counting in my head. 1, 2, 3. The figure didn't move, not even a little. No sway, no shift in weight, just still. 10, 11, 12. I could see it clearly in the headlights now. Dark clothing, no reflective gear, no flashlight, but I couldn't make out a face. 20, 21. The posture was wrong. Too straight, arms too stiff, like someone standing at attention, but not quite right. 29, 30. I looked again. It was gone. I sat there, engine idling, staring at the empty space where it had been. No footprints in the dirt. No sign anyone had been there. The cattle guard gleamed in my headlights, undisturbed. I wrote it in the notebook. 011 7-figure near cattle guard NW perimeter, observed and cleared. I didn't tell Glenn. On night 3, nothing happened. No voice, no figure, just wind and stars and the sound of tires on dirt. On night 4, the figure was back. Same spot, same posture. I counted to 30. It disappeared. On night 5, I tested it. I saw the figure again, standing on the far side of the cattle guard. But this time, instead of counting all the way, I counted to 15 and looked again. It had moved. Not walked, not turned, just moved. It was 10 feet closer to the cattle guard now, still facing me, still perfectly still. My mouth went dry. I had finished the count. 29, 30. When I looked again, it was gone, but I knew what I'd done. I'd looked too soon, and it had moved closer. The rule wasn't a suggestion. I didn't test it again. On night 7, Glenn introduced me to the new guy. His name was Joel Pritchard, mid-30s, prior Army National Guard contract in Texas before this. Said he'd done security work at oil fields and border stations. He seemed solid, calm, the kind of guy who'd actually read the manual. Glenn had hired him to split the schedule. Joel would work 4 nights a week. I'd work 3. We'd overlap on Wednesdays for handoff. Glenn gave me the car, Joel said when we met. Said it's a thing the night guys pass around. You take it seriously? We were standing by the trucks near the south trailer. The sun was just setting, painting the ridges orange. I don't break the rules, I said. Joel smiled a little. Fair enough. Seems pretty straightforward. Don't talk to voices, don't go certain places, don't mess with weird stuff. I've had worse instructions. You ever work a place like this before? Depends what you mean by like this, he said. I worked a site in West Texas where the locals said La Llorona walked the fence line. Worked a stretch in New Mexico where people swore they saw lights in the sky every other week. It's all the same. People get spooked in the dark. They see things. He tapped the laminated card. But I'll follow the rules. No reason not to. I showed him the route. The gates. The cattle guard. The Homestead Foundation with its solar floodlight burning bright in the growing dark. Why is there a light out there? Joel asked. No idea, I said. It was here when I started. Glenn said it was probably from a previous survey team. And Rule 4 says don't go near it after dark. Don't enter the foundation, I corrected, even with lights. Joel looked at it for a long moment. Seems easy enough to avoid. We split up after that. He took Monday through Thursday. I took Friday through Sunday. Wednesday was our overlap, just long enough to compare notes and make sure nothing had changed. On night 9, my first solo shift after Joel started, I broke Rule 3. I saw the figure again. Same place, same cattle guard, same impossible stillness. But this time, I was tired, frustrated. I wanted to know what it was. So I looked at it for 5 seconds, then started counting. At 10, I looked again. It was closer. At 15, I looked again. It had crossed the cattle guard. It was standing on my side of the road now, maybe 20 yards from my truck, and its head was turned toward me. I didn't finish the count. I threw the truck in reverse and backed up 50 feet, then swung around and drove south as fast as the dirt road would allow. Rocks pinged off the undercarriage. Dust cloud rose behind me. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. When I got back to the south trailer, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I sat there with the doors locked and the engine running until my hands stopped shaking. The radio crackled. "Brian, you there?" Glenn's voice. I picked up the radio. "Yeah, I'm here. You alright? Saw you moving fast on the GPS. The truck had a tracker. I'd forgotten about that." "I'm fine," I said. "Thought I saw someone on the property." False alarm. Someone or something. I paused. Someone. "You get a look at him?" "No. Too dark." Glenn was quiet for a moment. "You want me to come out there?" "No, I'm good. Just spooked myself." "Alright. Let me know if it happens again." "Will do." I set the radio down and stared at the dashboard. The clock read 2:47 a.m., 3 hours and 13 minutes until sunrise. I made it through the rest of the shift without incident, but I didn't go near the northwest corner again. I stayed south, driving loops between the main gate and the east maintenance gate, checking locks that didn't need checking. When Glenn showed up at 6:15, he could tell something was wrong. "You look like hell," he said. "Didn't sleep well yesterday." "That all?" I wanted to tell him. I wanted to hand him the keys and the card and say I was done, but I needed the money. And part of me wanted to know what would happen next. "That's all," I said. Glenn handed me the envelope. "Joel's taking over tonight. You've got the weekend off. Get some rest." I nodded and drove back to Roosevelt. I slept for 12 hours straight, woke up at 4 in the morning on Saturday, and couldn't fall back asleep. I kept seeing the figure in my mind, the way it had moved without moving, the way its head had turned. On Sunday night, I went back for my shift. Nothing happened on night 10 or night 11. The figure didn't appear. I didn't hear my name. The radio stayed quiet. I started to think maybe it was done with me. I was wrong. On night 12, a Wednesday, Joel's last night before I took over for the weekend, Joel didn't show up for handoff. Glenn called me at 7 p.m. I was already on my way to the ranch. "You seen Joel?" he asked. "Not since last week." "Why?" "He's not answering his phone." "I'm heading out there now. Can you come in early?" "I'm 10 minutes out." "Good. Meet me at the northwest gate." My stomach dropped. "Why there?" "That's where his truck is." I got to the ranch at 7:40. The sky was still light, but the shadows were long and the temperature was dropping. Glenn's truck was parked on the access road near the turnoff to the northwest section. I pulled up behind him. Glenn was standing outside his vehicle, looking down into the wash. "His truck's there," Glenn said, pointing. I walked over and looked. A gray Chevy Silverado was parked about 10 feet from the gate, driver's door wide open, engine off. The headlights were still on, battery dying, throwing weak yellow light across the chain link. "When did he stop responding?" I asked. "Last check-in was at 3:08 a.m. Glenn said. He radioed that he was doing a perimeter sweep. Nothing after that. I tried calling at 6 when he didn't show for his checkout. Went straight to voicemail. We walked down to the truck. The keys were still in the ignition. Turned to the ON position. Joel's phone was on the passenger seat. Screen cracked. His jacket was folded in the back seat. His mag light was on the dashboard. Everything was there, except Joel. Glenn circled the truck slowly, scanning the ground with his own flashlight. Then he stopped. Ryan, he said quietly, come look at this. I walked over. Blueprints. Clear as day in the soft dirt leading from the driver's side door straight to the gate. Heavy tread, work boots, Joel's size. Glenn followed them with his flashlight, tracing the path. The prints went through the gate, not around it, not under it. The chain was still locked, master lock intact, no sign of tampering. But the boot prints continued on the other side, heading northwest into the scrub toward the dark horizon. That's not possible, Glenn said. I looked at the lock, at the chain, at the prints on both sides. No, I said. It's not. Glenn stood up, pulled out his phone, and dialed. Yeah, this is Glenn Richter. I need to report a missing person. The sheriff's deputy arrived an hour later, just as full dark settled in. His name was Kohler, mid-40s, Uintah County Sheriff's patch on his sleeve. He took photos with a digital camera, wrote notes in a pocket notepad, checked the gate himself. He didn't have an explanation. Could he have climbed over? Kohler asked, shining his flashlight on the top of the gate. There'd be scuff marks on the crossbar, Glenn said. There aren't any. Could someone have unlocked it and locked it back? I have the only other key, Glenn said, holding up his key ring. Taylor looked at me. You work nights here too, right? Yeah. You see anything unusual last night? I wasn't here last night, Joel was covering. What about the nights before? I thought about the figure, the count, the way had crossed the cattle guard when I looked too soon. I thought about Rule 2. Do not approach the northwest gate between midnight and 4 a.m., even if you see lights or movement there. Joel's last check-in was 3:08 a.m. No, I said, nothing unusual. Kohler made a few more notes, then walked back to his vehicle. We'll do a search at first light. If he wandered off, we'll find him. People don't just disappear. He drove away. Glenn and I stood there in the dark, listening to the wind move through the scrub. Tell me the truth, Glenn said. Have you seen anything out here? I looked toward the homestead. The solar floodlight was on, bright and steady in the distance. I've heard things, I said carefully, and I've seen shapes, but I followed the rules. I stayed away from the northwest gate after midnight. Joel had the same card you did. I know. So what happened? I didn't answer. Glenn walked back to his truck, then turned. I'm shutting down night operations. Effective immediately. You're done. I'll pay you for the full week, but I don't want anyone out here after dark anymore. What about the search tomorrow? County can handle it. I'll be here during the day to coordinate. He got in his truck. Go home, Ryan. I drove back to Roosevelt, but I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about Joel, about the boot prints going through the gate, about the figure I'd seen crossing the cattle guard, and I kept thinking about Rule 5. If your radio plays a voice you recognize, do not reply. Turn off the radio and wait 5 minutes before turning it back on. At 2:17 a.m., my cell phone rang. No caller ID. I stared at it for 3 rings, then answered. Static, then Joel's voice. Ryan, you there? I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at the screen. Still said no caller ID. Ryan, I need help. I'm at the gate. Can you open it? I hung up. I sat in the dark in my motel room for 30 minutes. Phone face down on the nightstand. It didn't ring again. But I couldn't stop thinking about Joel's voice. It sounded exactly like him. Same tone, same slight Oklahoma accent he never quite lost. Except Joel was gone. The next morning, I drove back to the ranch. I told myself I was just going to check in with Glenn, see if the search had found anything, but really, I needed to know what had happened to the floodlight at the homestead. Glenn was there with two younger guys I didn't recognize, loading equipment into a trailer. He looked exhausted. "What are you doing here?" Glenn asked when he saw me. "I got a call last night," I said, someone using Joel's voice. Glenn stopped what he was doing. The two other guys kept working, but I could tell they were listening. "What did they say?" Glenn asked quietly. "They said they needed help. Said they were at the gate." The taller of the two guys looked at Glenn. "That's the third one." I turned. "Third what?" Glenn set down the toolbox he'd been holding. "Joel's parents got a call 2 nights ago. Same thing." Joel's voice, asking for help. "Sheriff's office got one yesterday morning. We thought it was a prank." "It's not a prank," I said. "I know," Glenn said. We pulled his phone records. No outgoing calls since 3 a.m. on Wednesday. "So where are the calls coming from?" Glenn didn't answer. He told me the firm was pulling out. The lease was up in June anyway, and after Joel's disappearance, they didn't want the liability. They were packing up the trailers, removing the monitoring equipment, and clearing out by the end of the week. "What about the search?" I asked. "Sheriff's Department did a full sweep this morning. Brought dogs. Covered a 5-mile radius from where we found his truck." Glenn looked toward the northwest corner of the property. "They didn't find anything. No tracks, no clothing, no sign of him." "So that's it? What else can we do?" Glenn's voice was rough. "We can't stay out here. Whatever's happening on this property, we're done trying to figure it out." I looked past him toward the homestead. I could just barely see it from where we stood, a low dark outline against the scrub. "What about the floodlight?" I asked. "What about it?" "The solar light at the foundation. Who installed it?" Glenn frowned. "It was already here when we took the lease 3 years ago. We figured it was from a previous team. BLM survey, maybe. Archaeological group. Why? Does it stay on all night?" "Far as I know, solar cell keeps it charged." He looked at me. "Why are you asking about the light?" "Rule 4 says don't enter the foundation after dark. So someone put that light there for a reason." The taller guy spoke up. "Glenn, the light's already packed. We pulled it yesterday." Glenn turned. "What?" "Yeah, it's in your truck bed. Solar panel was fried. Whole thing's been dead for weeks. We only noticed when we started breaking down the equipment." I felt cold spread through my chest. "It was on 2 nights ago." "Couldn't have been," the guy said. "Panels corroded. Batteries shot. Thing hasn't worked in months." I looked at Glenn. He looked back at me. "Get your stuff and go," he said quietly. "Don't come back here." I left the ranch that afternoon and told myself I was done. I tried to forget about the rules, about Joel, about the boot prints that went through a locked gate. I picked up a job doing warehouse security in Vernal, worked doubles to keep my mind occupied. It worked for about 3 weeks. Then, on a Friday night in early May, I got a message on Facebook from a guy named Aaron Trask. "Hey man, I heard you used to work nights at Skinwalker Ranch. I just got hired for the same gig and wanted to see if you had any advice. Glenn said the last couple guys didn't last long, but he's paying good money and I need the work. Anything I should know." I stared at the message for a long time. Glenn said he'd shut down night operations. That was what he told me. I typed back, "Don't take the job." Aaron replied within a minute. "Why not?" Glenn said. "It's just perimeter patrol." "Did he give you a laminated card?" "Yeah, with rules." "Is that what you mean?" "How many rules?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. 6. My hands were shaking. "Send me a photo of the card," I typed. A minute later, the photo came through. It was the same card, same blue pen, same me handwriting, but there were 6 rules now, not 5. The first 5 were the same. The 6th rule was new. 6. If the floodlight at the old homestead goes out, leave the property immediately. Do not wait until morning. I called Aaron immediately. He answered on the second ring. Hello? Don't take the job. Who is this? Brian Kellner. You messaged me about Skinwalker Ranch. Oh, hey man, listen. I appreciate the concern, but don't take the job, I said again. The guy before me disappeared. They never found him. And before you ask, yes, I'm serious. His truck was found at the northwest gate with the door open. Boot prints led through a locked gate. He's been gone for a month. Silence on the other end. Aaron? Glenn didn't mention that. Glenn's desperate. The firm pulled out. He's probably running it himself now, trying to fulfill whatever contract obligations are left. I took a breath. Look, I don't know what's out there, but the rules aren't a joke, and if you go, you need to follow them exactly. Aaron paused. I really need the money, man. My wife's pregnant, and we've got medical bills. $800 a week is more than I can make anywhere else right now. It's not worth it. Maybe not to you. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him about the voice that sounded like mine, about the figure that moved without moving, about Joel's voice on the phone asking for help days after he vanished, but I could hear in his voice that he'd already made up his mind. Fine, I said, but listen to me. Follow the rules. All 6 of them. Don't test them. Don't assume they're metaphorical. And if anything feels wrong, if you hear your name, if you see something standing still, if the radio starts playing voices, don't engage. Just leave. Okay, Aaron said quietly. Okay, I'll be careful. And Aaron? Yeah? If you add a 7th rule to that card, it means someone else didn't make it out. I heard him swallow. Jesus. Good luck. I hung up. I tried to put it out of my mind. I worked my shifts, paid my bills, avoided checking Facebook, but 2 weeks later, I broke down and looked up Aaron's profile. His last post was from May 18th. Starting a new job tonight. Wish me luck. 37 likes, 12 comments, all variations of good luck, and you got this. Nothing after that. His profile was still active, but he hadn't posted in 9 days. I sent him a message. Aaron, you okay? It showed as delivered but not read. I waited 3 days, then called Glenn. He answered on the 5th ring. What? It's Ryan Kellner. The silence. You hired someone else for night patrol, I said. Guy named Aaron Trask. That's none of your business. Is he still working? Ryan. Is he still working, Glenn? Glenn was quiet for a long time. I could hear wind in the background. He was outside somewhere. No, he said finally. He's not. What happened? I don't know. He worked 5 nights, said everything was fine. Then on the 6th night, he didn't check in. I found his truck at the Homestead Foundation the next morning. Door open. Keys in the ignition. No sign of him. I closed my eyes. Boot prints? Yeah. Leading away from the truck. They stopped at the edge of the foundation stones. Glenn's voice was hollow. Sheriff came out again. Did another search. Found nothing. They're calling it a missing person case. But what? But I found something the sheriff didn't see. Or didn't want to see. He paused. There was a notebook in Aaron's truck. He'd been keeping his own log, separate from the one I gave him. Last entry said the floodlight went out at 3:42 a.m. Said he was going to check it. Rule 6. If the floodlight at the old homestead goes out, leave the property immediately. Do not wait until morning. Aaron had gone to check the light instead of leaving. I'm shutting down, Glenn said. For real this time. No more night patrol. No more contracts. The lease is up in 3 weeks, and I'm not renewing. Whatever's out there, it can have the place. Glenn. He hung up. I sat there in my apartment, staring at my phone. Then I pulled up Google Maps and looked at Skinwalker Ranch from satellite view. Just brown scrubland and fence lines and a few structures too small to make out. Somewhere in that image was the Homestead Foundation, and somewhere near it, maybe, was Joel and Aaron. I zoomed in as far as the satellite would let me, but the image was too low resolution to see details, just pixels and estimation. I closed the map. I haven't been back to the ranch. I don't plan to go back. But sometimes, late at night when I'm working security at the warehouse in Vernal, I think about those rules. 5 rules when I started, 6 rules when Aaron started, and I wonder if someone takes the job now, how many rules would they get? If you're reading this because you're thinking about working night security at Skinwalker Ranch, don't. The money isn't worth it. Nothing is worth it. But if you're already out there, if you've already taken the job and Glenn or whoever's running it now has given you the laminated card, follow the rules exactly. Don't test them. Don't assume you're smarter than the people who wrote them. Don't think you can out-logic something that doesn't follow logic. And if you get a 7th rule, it means someone else didn't make it. The full incident file, including my original logs, photos of Joel's truck, the sheriff's department report, and the last known messages from Aaron Trask, is available to members only. I've also uploaded a detailed map of the property with the high-risk zones marked, GPS coordinates for the Homestead Foundation, and the complete list of rules as they stood when I left. If you want access to all of that, the link is in the description. And if you're just here to fall asleep and you hate ads, there's an ad-free version of this story in the membership section. Same link. Stay safe out there. And if you hear your name called in the dark, don't answer.